Malignaggi of Paulie TV. Quick hit. What is the most underrated move in boxing? I see some of you guys sometimes ask me this kind of question. It's obviously up for debate, but personally, and I think most boxing people would agree, the most underrated thing in boxing is the jab. And for me, that reason for me personally is that it does a lot of things. It's multiple fold. You know, I would say two-fold, three-fold, four-fold, five-fold. It has a lot of things that it does. Okay, number one, the jab sets up your other offense. That's the most simple thing, right? You use the jab and you open up other offense. You can follow it up with the right hand hooks. You can hook off the jab. You can do a lot of things. Number two, it nullifies the other guy's attack. So basically, he's trying to set you up. He's trying to set traps. But if you keep a smart, consistent jab in his face, I personally love the jab mixed in with some feints in there because that way the guy can't get a real timing on it, or you double it up at times or triple it up at times. If you vary your jab enough and make it effective enough, the other guy, your opponent, is going to be frustrated because he's trying to set you up and it constantly has this thing batting him in his mouth, and he's got to reset and rethink things of how he's going to set you up and set the traps that he's trying to set up. Also, you know, while he's trying to set you up, if he's getting hit with jabs, odds are he's being set up for other shots. So that's a twofold thing. Three, it can be a distance pace controller. You know, a lot of times, I remember in my career, you know, I want to take a round off. I would be I was always heavy on the jab, let's be honest, but I would be extra heavy on the jab. Also, you know, I remember having my hands hurt many times. My right hand was hurting constantly in my career. I would break it or just damage it. And a lot of times I had to figure out a way how to win rounds without exchanging, getting into, because if you're one-handed, it is impossible to win a round while getting into an exchange with a two-handed fighter. So how do you win rounds? You're going to have to figure out ways to sneak shots in and get out in time before he can, you know, let go of both of his hands. Because if you stay in the pocket with one hand and he's got two hands, common sense and logic, he's going to win the exchange. So I had to figure out a way to use that one hand, use that jab in order to pick off and get out, sometimes hook off of it, like I said earlier, and get out. So it can also be a method to control the pace, because at the same time, you need the pace slowed down if you're a one-handed fighter. So it can control the pace while also nullifying the other guy's attack, as I said earlier. I did this in any fight that I broke my hand or hurt my hand, and you'll notice me being very, very heavy just on the jab alone. You'll notice that I throw no right hands or barely any right hands at that point, and that is usually meaning that I've hurt my hand, but I learned to kind of sell it to you in a way where my body language doesn't change. I've always been a good jabber, so if I'm just jabbing at you, you may not realize it. I'm not shaking my right hand or anything for the most part, so you usually don't realize that I'm actually just fighting you with one hand. I think the best way I did this, because usually the commentators were smart enough to start to catch on to it in my career, but there was a fight that actually they had no idea, and obviously I go back on this with the MMA fans and pundits being the dumbest in sports. It was when I fought the bare knuckle fight. You can actually see me fighting one-handed from the second half of the second round on all the way throughout the rest of the fight, and my body language doesn't change. I look comfortable. I'm selling it to you because you got to be able to sell an illusion to a fighter that you're comfortable even if you're not. And I made myself so comfortable in that fight that even fighting one-handed, I was able to avoid every single exchange and able to pick my opponent off with being one-handed. Obviously, it would have been nicer to have my other hand to throw some combinations, especially once I got the timing down, but I didn't have that option once I broke my hand. So again, the left hand, the jab, or you know, if you're a southpaw, it's your right jab, but nonetheless, the left hand allows you to win rounds and control the tempo, the distance, while being able to slow down the tempo if you need rest, or if you're one-handed, where then a slower pace kind of benefits you in order to dictate the fight and still control the rounds and being able to win the rounds. There's a lot of things. There's probably several other things the jab does that I'm probably not thinking of offhand. You know, let's see, controls the pace, sets up your own attack, breaks down the attack of the opposition. And you know, some people have told me in my career, oh, you can't win a fight with just a jab. I actually showed you the opposite. You can win a fight with just a jab. Not to say that if a fighter is good enough, he'll obviously, it doesn't mean you can win it with just a jab. Their fighters so good that unfortunately you're going to need two hands to beat them. But if you're going to win a fight with just a jab, you also need good use of your legs, because you need to understand what distance you're at, because people will always walk through a jab. If a fighter wants to be aggressive, he'll always be able to walk through a jab. It's not a power punch. But if you start to align your defense where you're jabbing, stepping back, jabbing, or jabbing, stepping in, and just understanding those distances, you always adjust your distance to where you can always jab while keeping your defensive posture very responsible, not putting yourself out of position so that you can always jab no matter what defensive posture, no matter what defensive move you make, that allows you to be able to hit a guy with your jab consistently, both on attack and on defense, and slows him down unless he's totally so good that you're gonna need the rest of your attack. When if you don't have that, you got a problem. There are fighters that are good enough, so good that you're gonna need two hands, unfortunately, to beat them. But yeah, so that's the underrated thing about the most underrated thing in boxing for me is the jab. Let me know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe. I mean, I think most of you are gonna agree with this assessment. Most people I talk to understand this, although it's easier to fall in love and with the sexier punch like a hook or an uppercut, a big power shot. The jab is the most effective thing in boxing and the most underrated thing in boxing.